I've heard it said that the spiritual paths which lead to the source are as numerous as there are humans on the planet. For the yogi, the path leading back to one's innermost nature is often characterized by the Sanskrit word sadhana. Sadhana means the way of attainment. It refers to the practices, patterns, and behaviors which lead one to awaken. When it comes to awakening, we must draw a distinction. What does it mean to awaken? In today's day and age, there's been a growing interest in spiritual ideas and concepts, and many have turned to Eastern wisdom sciences to assist in the age-old existential questions, such as, who am I? Where did I come from? And where am I going? For myself, my own spiritual path and journey of awakening began in 2014. Let me tell you some stories of a yogi. Every day the sun rises and shines equally on everything on this planet. Nature's just doing her thing. Life happening. When I first started practicing yoga, I learned that I could connect to the force of life, the impulse of life, that's seeking balance, that's seeking health. Because I learned that health was a function of being in alignment with these forces of nature, these forces of life. And it's been a process, moving to Costa Rica back in 2020 during COVID. But there's been a lot of really powerful lessons, powerful teachings. I just feel really grateful that there is a path that brings us back home to ourselves. Welcome to my porch. A really beautiful view of the mountain here, and I feel really fortunate to practice with this vista, this view, just the vibe here in the mountain is really spectacular and very pure. One of the things they say often in Costa Rica is the country mantra is Pura vida, means pure life. I want to share a little bit about this word sadhana. For those who don't know, I've been teaching yoga for about 10 years now. A big part of the path of yoga has to do with the practices that we do, right? Hold on, it's kind of cold. That's better. A big part of what we do in the yoga path is practice, right? Lately for me, I've been rediscovering my love of the sun salutation, a really simple but very powerful and effective sequence of postures. Often sun salutation is seen as like a warm-up, but for me, I see it's definitely not just a warm-up. Well, when I first began practicing yoga at the studio in 2014, I went every day to that studio, and I committed to going to at least one class every day. That was the first 30 days of my journey with yoga. And after that 30 days, that commitment to myself of 30 days was finished, I kept going. I started to develop a habit of going every day. And about a year into that process of daily practice at a studio with a teacher guiding me, I ended up quitting my job. I was a mortgage banker, and leaving my job as a mortgage banker, I came to Costa Rica for the first time. This was July 2015. I came to Costa Rica because there was a yoga teacher training program that I wanted to attend. I wanted to deepen my practice with yoga. And I discovered through my yoga teacher training how to create my own sadhana, how to develop my own set of practices that I could do every day to help my system feel better, help me align the different systems in my body. And so I came back from Costa Rica completely changed. Like I had just such an incredible time. I spent about a month down here, that first trip. And when I got back to Arizona, I was living in Arizona at the time, all I wanted to do was practice yoga. I didn't want to do anything else. I was running out of money quickly because I was just living off of savings. But something about the path of yoga and the practices I was doing was just like, it just felt so true. It felt so real. Part of that, the beginning of that journey was to start to connect consciously to the sun and start to build a relationship to the sun. It sounds so simple, but it was actually really powerful for me to do that. I started to do the sun salutation every day. This is now 2015, practicing the sun salutation every day, every morning. And I would get up and I would do my sequences. I had a set of postures and asanas that I would do, and I also had a couple pranayamas and kriyas that I was doing. And I was chanting some mantras with my mala. I was repeating a mantra with the mala bead. And that was like my first sadhana, right? And I fell in love with the sun salutation. It was like the sun salutation was the thing that made the biggest difference for me. It was so, I don't know, it's just something about it felt good. And over the years, almost a decade, right? Or 10 years, the sun salutation became more and more central. I learned that I didn't really need much else. I didn't need to do a bunch of fancy asanas or creative vinyasa flows. And that brought me into a state of simplicity with my sadhana. Eventually I started to just do the sun salutation and some very basic pranayamas, and that was it. And it was so like automatic. I developed in my system just this hunger to do that. And now here I am, 2025, and I'm just like in another way deepening into my practice. And just yesterday I did a bunch of sun salutations right here on this porch. That was what was in the time lapse that was at the beginning of this video. Just many repetitions of the sun salutation over and over and over again, and just connecting to my breath, connecting to the little micro alignments of the postures and the vinyasa, and learning to allow my breath to guide, almost like my body is just being carried along the breath, the wave of the breath. And that sort of connection or that relationship that I started to build to the sun salutation early on helped me to understand the importance of having a daily practice that was consistent, that was repetitive, that I could just show up to day after day after day. And I didn't need to think about what I was going to do. You know, I didn't need to like get creative. I didn't need to look for a technique. I felt like what I learned through that repetition and that consistency of just doing the same thing over and over and over and over again was, I'm going to be different every day. But to have something that was so solid and so consistent and so regular, to show up to that, I could learn to adapt that to the needs of the moment. And over time, I learned that it wasn't so important what I was practicing, but instead how I was practicing. How I was practicing was far more important than the technique. And this really helped me understand and integrate more of the, I guess you could say, the deeper teachings of the path of yoga and some of the things that I initially missed. Because when I first started practicing, it was really a physical thing. I was really battling injuries in my body, physical stuff. And the regularity of the sun salutation and just doing this, you know, it seems simple, right? It's just lunge, downward dog, cobra. Like, these are relatively simple postures, but the subtleties in that practice started to reveal themselves. And over time, I guess I learned to really love myself and heal myself through that simplicity and the purity of that. And, you know, the sun salutation comes from an ancient tradition that's, some say, about 1800 years old. It predates Hatha Yoga, which systemized the practices of asana and bandha and pranayama. And Hatha Yoga only really emerged and became prevalent around 1400 AD. But it was long before that systemization of practices that there were ritual practices designed to bring humans into alignment with nature, and the sun salutation being one example of that. And it was designed as a ritual dance, as a way to honor not just the sun, yeah, of course, the physical sun, but also that spark of life in us, the sun that's inside of us, as the soul that I am and that you are, that impulse of light that gives us this ability to be conscious and to ultimately awakening to our true essence, awakening to our true power. And then from that, learning to radiate that light outward and to illuminate our environment, illuminate our surroundings, illuminate our world, just as the sun illuminates everything every day. So yeah, that was a little bit that I wanted to share with you about the sun salutation and about sadhana. And I've been really enjoying making these videos, and I hope that you're finding them inspiring as well. A little behind the scenes look at the stories of a yogi. I'll see you guys for the next one. Remember to check out some of the other videos on this channel if you want to practice with me or deepen. And I look forward to seeing you soon.